Once upon a time, in a beautiful village called Njaba, there lived a king and queen. Their names were King Emeka and Queen Chioma. They loved each other very much, and their love was like a beautiful story. King Emeka always protected his queen and never let anyone say anything bad about her. I love you, Chioma, King Emeka would often say, his eyes shining with happiness. You are my everything. I cannot imagine a life without you. Queen Chioma would smile and blush. I love you too, my king, she would reply. You are my everything. I cannot imagine a life without you by my side. Their love was pure and true, and the kingdom was happy because of them. But as the years went by, the people in the kingdom began to whisper. They were worried because King Emeka and Queen Chioma did not have a child. The king's advisors and important people in the kingdom urged him to take another wife to have a baby. But King Emeka loved Queen Chioma too much and refused to share his heart with another. Queen Chioma knew about the pressure on her husband. She held his hand and looked into his eyes. My dear king, do not worry about what the people are saying. We will have a child, a beautiful child who will be our heir. Have faith in us, in our love and in God. King Emeka's face lit up with hope. You really believe so, my love? I do, Queen Chioma said. Her voice strong. We are young and God is on our side. Our love is strong and it will bring us a beautiful child. 5 long years had passed and the kingdom became more worried. But Queen Chioma's words stayed in King Emeka's heart. Then one day, they received wonderful news. Queen Chioma was going to have a baby. The kingdom celebrated, and King Emeka held his wife close, thanking God for their blessing. 9 months later, Queen Chioma gave birth to a beautiful son. The whole kingdom was filled with joy. Queen Chioma was a loving mother and protected her baby closely. 3 days later, Queen Chioma took her baby for his immunization. She wanted to carry him herself and asked her maid to wait in the car. At the health center, she felt a sudden need to use the restroom. The nurses offered to hold the baby, but Queen Chioma refused. Please, I will take him with me, she said, holding her baby tightly. As she went into the bathroom, the baby started to fuse. A cleaner named Norma was passing by and Queen Chioma handed the baby to her, asking her to wait outside. Norma, who had no children of her own, felt a strong desire to keep the baby. She looked at the baby's face and felt a surge of love. She decided to take the baby and run away. Oh, what a beautiful child, Norma said, looking at the baby. Yes, he is, Queen Chioma replied with a smile. Please just wait outside with him until I'm done. But when Queen Chioma came out of the bathroom, Norma and the baby were gone. Queen Chioma searched everywhere, calling for her baby and the cleaner, but there was no response. Where is my child? She cried out. Where is the cleaner who was holding him? The nurses and staffs searched everywhere and even went to Norma's home, but she had already packed her things and fled. Meanwhile, Norma had taken the baby and left through the back door of the health center. She climbed over the fence and ran to her small hut on the outskirts of the kingdom. She packed her belongings and fled, leaving behind her life in the kingdom. Back at the health center, Queen Chioma was frantic. King Emeka was summoned and came immediately. When he heard the news, he was furious. He gathered his guards and searched every corner of the kingdom. Find my son, he roared. Find him or face my wrath. The search continued, but the baby and Norma were nowhere to be found. The kingdom was in chaos, and King Emeka was filled with grief and worry. He loved his wife and child very much and would do anything to find them. Back at the palace, Queen Chioma was in tears. She had never been away from her baby before and could not bear the thought of someone else holding him. King Emeka, equally distraught, launched another search party. Days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. The kingdom was still in chaos, and the king's anger and desperation grew. He began to change towards Queen Chioma. He became distant and cold, and their love seemed to fade. "You were supposed to protect our child," he said angrily. "You failed me, Chioma. You failed our son." Queen Chioma was heartbroken. She had never seen him like this before. The love they once shared was slipping away. Meanwhile, Norma was hiding with the baby. She had taken him and was determined to keep him as her own. She knew she had done something terrible, but she felt a strong love for the baby. And so the kingdom continued to search for the missing prince. King Emeka and Queen Chioma were heartbroken, but they did not give up hope. They believed that one day they would find their son and bring him back home. Norma never thought her life would change so much. She had always been kind and caring, but her desire for a child was strong. Now, living in a new city with the prince, she was acting as his mother, giving him lots of love and care. Even though she had taken the prince in a way that was wrong, Norma felt a strong connection to him. She always wanted a child to love, and now she had one. She tried not to feel guilty and focused on being the best mother she could be. She named the prince Obinna. He brought her so much happiness. His smiles and curious nature made her heart happy. Norma spent her days playing with him, teaching him new things and watching him grow. The people in her new city admired how she took care of Obinna. They often said how lucky he was to have such a loving mother. Norma would smile and feel proud when she heard this. As Obinna grew, Norma noticed how much he looked like King Emeka and Queen Chioma. Sometimes she would stare at him and wonder about his real parents and the life he was supposed to have. But she pushed these thoughts away and focused on the life they had together. Despite all the love she gave him, Norma couldn't forget that she had taken the child. She knew she was not his true mother, and this made her feel sad sometimes. Back in the kingdom, 3 years had passed since the prince disappeared. Emeka had changed a lot towards Queen Chioma. He no longer treated her with love. Instead, he was cold and distant, blaming her for her lost son. Queen Chioma tried everything to win back her husband's love, but nothing worked. She felt very sad and was always careful around him. One day, Queen Chioma found out she was pregnant again. She was nervous but also hopeful that this new baby could bring her and King Emeka closer. She decided to tell him the news, hoping it would make him happy. But King Emeka's reaction was not what she expected. He was still angry and told Queen Chioma that the only way she could regain his love was to give him another son. He said that if this baby was a girl, their marriage would be over. Queen Chioma was heartbroken. She felt like she was being forced to have a boy to save her marriage. She went for an ultrasound to find out the baby's gender, hoping it would be a baby boy. But the ultrasound showed she was having a girl. Queen Chioma felt like her world was falling apart. She cried a lot, knowing that her marriage was in danger. Months passed, and Chioma's pregnancy was almost over. When she went into labor, King Emeka quickly took her to the hospital with his guards. He was very nervous, hoping for a baby boy. The medical team took Chioma to the labor room, and the king waited outside, pacing back and forth. Inside the labor room, Chioma was in pain, but the medical team worked hard to help her. "Push, Your Majesty, push," the nurse encouraged. After a few more pushes, Queen Chioma gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Instead of joy, Queen Chioma started crying. "It's a girl," one of the nurses whispered. In the next labor room, another woman named Sarah was also giving birth. "She is crowning," her nurse exclaimed. Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby boy. "Yes, it's a boy," her nurse cheered. Queen Chioma, still crying, heard the noise. "What's going on?" she asked her nurse. "The other woman, Sarah, just had a baby boy," the nurse replied. Queen Chioma's eyes filled with desperation. "Can I speak to you for a moment?" she asked. "Of course, Your Majesty," the nurse replied. "I'll give you a lot of money if you switch the babies," Queen Chioma whispered urgently. The nurse looked surprised but tempted. "I will need to check with my colleague," she said. The queen nodded, her eyes pleading. A few minutes later, the nurse returned with her colleagues. "We will do it," they said together. Without hesitation, they switched the babies. Queen Chioma's baby girl was taken away, and Sarah's baby boy was placed in her arms. Just then, King Emeka came into the room, beaming with pride. "My son," he exclaimed, taking the baby boy from Queen Chioma. Queen Chioma forced a smile, feeling very guilty. "Our son, my love," she said, pretending to be happy. Sarah, still weak from giving birth, didn't know the babies had been switched. Her life was about to change dramatically. Queen Chioma struggled every day to accept what she had done. She had switched her baby girl with Sarah's baby boy to save her marriage and please King Emeka, who wanted a male heir. But the guilt and shame weighed heavily on her heart. Sarah was very happy with her new baby girl, not knowing that she wasn't her real child. She named her Adako and loved her very much. Noma, on the other hand, was living in a new city with Obinna, the real prince. King Emeka was excited about his new son and named him Onyeka. He proudly showed him off to the kingdom, happy to have a male heir. But Queen Chioma's smile hid a deep sadness. She knew the truth, and it was eating away at her. Even though she had switched the babies, Queen Chioma felt empty. She wanted to be a part of her real daughter's life, to watch her grow and be happy. So she made a plan to keep an eye on Sarah and Ada from afar, using her trusted helpers to get information and send her updates every day. She received many photos and videos of Ada's special moments, but it wasn't enough. She wanted a personal connection with Ada without revealing who she really was. So she planned a daring rescue, pretending to save Sarah and Ada from a fake kidnapping attempt. Queen Chioma parked her car a few blocks away from Sarah's house, watching closely. Her phone buzzed with a message from her aide, confirming that the fake kidnappers were ready. As Sarah and Ada came out of the house, Queen Chioma's heart raced. She dialed the number, and the fake kidnappers sprang into action. They grabbed Sarah and Ada, tossing them into a nearby van. Queen Chioma jumped into action, running towards the scene. She fought off the kidnappers with the help of her trained guards, who intervened just in time. In the chaos, she rescued Ada, holding her close. For a moment, she closed her eyes, savoring the feeling of holding her real daughter. With the fake kidnappers subdued, Queen Chioma led Sarah and Ada back to their house. They were scared, and Queen Chioma played the hero, offering comfort and support. As they entered the house, she noticed the poverty around them. Sarah hesitated when she asked about her husband, but Queen Chioma's kind smile made her feel comfortable. Sarah shared her struggles as a single mother, and Queen Chioma's heart went out to her. She promised to help, offering a scholarship for Ada, a new shop for Sarah, and a better home. As Queen Chioma finished speaking, Sarah's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. She felt deeply thankful for the queen's kindness and generosity. She began to kneel to thank Chioma, but the queen quickly stopped her. "No, no, no, my dear," Chioma said with a warm smile. "There is no need for that. From now on, you will be the sister I never had. and Ada will be the daughter I never had. We'll be a family bound by love and loyalty. Sarah's eyes shone with happiness as Chioma's word wrapped around her like a warm hug. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. Chioma opened her arms and Sarah stepped into them, feeling a sense of homecoming. As they parted ways, Queen Chioma smiled, her eyes on Ada. From this day forward, Ada will be my goddaughter, she said warmly. I'll be there for her always. Queen Chioma returned home, her heart full of joy and her mind racing with the success of her plan. Now, my dear daughter will soon be mine, she thought, a sly smile spreading across her face. I will shower Sarah and Ada with affection, and Ada will naturally prefer me over Sarah. She won't even realize when she is moved in to stay with her godmother, her real mother. Her smile grew wider as she imagined the future. I will have my daughter, my husband's love, and my place as queen. And to secure my legacy, I will ensure Ada and Prince Onyeka become the best of friends. When they come of age, I will ask Prince Onyeka to marry Ada, and my daughter will be mine forever. I have killed two birds with one stone, she thought, proud of her cleverness. She let out a quiet laugh, her eyes sparkling with a mix of happiness and determination. I'm sorry, my God, but I have to be selfish. My daughter's love is worth any cost. I can't lose both of my children, she whispered to herself, remembering the pain of her first child abduction. I've always lost one. I can't lose Ada too. The fear of losing another child was clear in her voice, and her determination to keep Ada close was strong. As time went by, Queen Chioma's love for Ada grew stronger. She gave Ada many gifts and lots of attention, making Ada feel very special. Sarah, Ada's real mother, was thankful for the queen's kindness but started to feel left out of her own daughter's life. Ada spent more and more time at the palace, leaving Sarah to manage her new business and home alone. Prince Onyeka, who used to be the center of Queen Chioma's world, began to feel ignored. He tried to get his mother's attention, but she was always too busy with Ada. This made Prince Onyeka feel jealous and sad, as if he was being replaced. King Emeka, unaware of what was happening, was proud of his son, Prince Onyeka. He didn't notice that Queen Chioma's focus had shifted to Ada. She often cancelled meetings and events to spend time with Ada, taking her on fun trips and buying her fancy clothes. Sarah felt uneasy about the situation. She wanted to spend more time with Ada, but Queen Chioma always found a way to take Ada away, making it hard for Sarah to bond with her own daughter. As the weeks passed, Queen Chioma's obsession with Ada grew. She started making decisions without consulting King Emeka or Sarah, which upset them both. The palace staff began to whisper about the queen's strange behavior and how she was giving more importance to a commoner's child over her own prince. The tension between Queen Chioma and Sarah increased. Sarah felt she was losing her daughter to the queen, while Queen Chioma couldn't understand why Sarah wasn't more grateful for the opportunities she was giving Ada. In the king's chamber, King Emeka was thinking about Prince Onyeka's future. He wanted his son to go to the University of Azura, the best school in the land. Queen Chioma agreed and thought it would also be good for Ada, a bright and talented girl. But King Emeka only wanted to focus on Prince Onyeka and didn't think Ada should go to the same school. Queen Chioma tried to convince him, saying that Ada was her goddaughter and deserved a good future too. She believed in showing kindness to all their people, including Ada. Finally, King Emeka softened. He knew Ada was special to Queen Chioma, so he agreed to think about letting her go to Azura University with Prince Onyeka. This made Queen Chioma very happy. So Ada and Prince Onyeka went to the university together. Their friendship grew and Queen Chioma was very pleased. She even hoped they might get married someday. Ada spent more time at the palace during holidays and didn't go back to Sarah's house as often. Although Sarah missed her daughter, Ada's cheerful letters always made her smile. But things changed. Prince Onyeka started getting angry and blamed Ada for taking his mother's love away. One day at the school, he shouted at Ada, saying she was just a commoner trying to take his mother's attention. A crowd gathered as they argued. Ada felt very hurt by Prince Onyeka's words. Just as he raised his hand to point at her, a student named Obina stepped in, defending Ada. He told Prince Onyeka that he had no right to treat her badly. The crowd gasped as Obina stood up to the prince. Ada's tears stopped, and she felt grateful to Obina for protecting her. They didn't know it yet, but fate had brought them together, and they shared a special bond. Prince Onyeka was very angry and frustrated. He paced back and forth in his room, and then called his mother, Queen Chioma. He shouted that Ada had been insulting him at school, and that he wouldn't tolerate it. Queen Chioma listened calmly and asked what Ada had said. Prince Onyeka exaggerated, saying Ada called him a nobody and that she didn't need his friendship. The queen promised to handle it and ended the call. Queen Chioma called Ada and gently asked what was happening between her and Onyeka. Ada explained that Onyeka had been spreading rumors about her and that she had stood up to him because he wasn't being kind. The queen became serious and called Onyeka back, telling him to behave and to stop bullying Ada. She reminded him that Ada was under her protection and that he should try to win her heart, not her anger. Prince Onyeka felt defiant and asked why his mother favored Ada over him. Queen Chioma got very angry and told Onyeka that Ada was important to her and even apologized for being harsh. She told him that Ada was her chosen future daughter-in-law and that he must reconcile with her or he would get nothing from her or the king. Onyeka, still angry, called Ada again. He tried to apologize, but his tone was insincere. He told Ada that his mother wanted them to get married and that she should be grateful. Ada was cautious and asked what Onyeka really wanted. He responded with pride, saying she should be happy that a prince like him wanted to marry her, a commoner. Ada was not pleased. She told Onyeka that she was not grateful for his arrogant attitude and that she had her own dreams and didn't want to be an accessory to his ego. She told him never to call her again and that she didn't want to be forced into a relationship with someone who didn't respect her. Onyeka, now very angry, threatened to stop his mother from paying her school fees, saying she should go back to the slum where she belonged. Ada, hot and frustrated, ended the call. With tears in her eyes, Ada called the queen and told her she couldn't keep pretending to be friends with Onyeka and didn't want the queen to pay her school fees anymore. She wanted to be free from Onyeka and the royal family. The queen was surprised and asked what happened. Ada explained that Onyeka was cruel and manipulative and that she wanted to build her own future without being controlled. The queen tried to interrupt, but Ada insisted and ended the call. Ada then called her new friend, Obina, and poured out her heart, saying that Prince Onyeka was suffocating her. Obina listened and reassured her that she was strong and capable. He encouraged her not to let Onyeka define her worth and to create her own future. After failing to reach Ada, Queen Chioma became very angry and called Onyeka. She fiercely told him not to ruin her plans and that he had to win Ada over or face her wrath. The queen was determined to make sure her plans succeeded, no matter what. Queen Chioma had been trying to call Ada for a whole month, but Ada never answered. Frustrated and worried, Queen Chioma reached out to Sarah. When she asked about Ada, Sarah's response was cryptic. Ada is more like your daughter than mine. She's at school. Determined to reconnect with Ada, Queen Chioma decided to visit her at school. When she arrived, she found out that Ada wasn't in her hostel. She asked some of Ada's classmates, who directed her to a secluded walkway where Ada often studied with a boy named Obina. As the queen approached the walkway, she saw Ada and Obina laughing and talking happily. Jealousy and insecurity filled her heart. Ada has moved on to another boy, she thought. The queen, still watching from a distance, pulled out her phone and dialed Onyeka's number. Onyeka, I need you to come to the campus immediately, she said urgently. Onyeka sounded surprised. Mom, you are on campus? Yes, don't ask any more questions. Follow the description I'll be giving you. The queen interrupted. Come to the walkway near the old oak tree. It's surrounded by trees and has a bench at the end. That's where I am. Come quickly and don't take long, she instructed. I'm on my way. I'm close by, Onyeka replied. Obinna noticed a stray strand of hair on Ada's face and gently tried to remove it. At that moment, the queen stepped forward, her voice booming. Young man, stop that, she shouted, her voice echoing through the walkway. How dare you touch her face? She's my future daughter-in-law, and you will not lay hands on her. Obinna was shocked by the queen's outburst. Ada quickly ran to hug her godmother. Mom, how are you? She asked, trying to calm the situation. The queen hugged her back, but soon began shouting. Why haven't you been answering my calls? Why are you making me worry? Feeling awkward, Obinna jumped into the conversation. Good day, ma'am, he said to the queen. Ada, is she your mother? Ada replied, yes, my godmother. The queen quickly told Ada to answer her questions. Just then, Prince Onyeka appeared and greeted his mother. After a brief conversation between the queen and her son, the queen asked Ada to explain herself. Ada quickly replied, saying she had stopped taking the queen's calls because she didn't want anything to do with Onyeka or the palace anymore. Onyeka responded sarcastically, who even want to have anything to do with a pest like you? Queen Chioma interrupted him. Be quiet, she commanded. She turned to Ada. I'm sorry about what happened, but I see you as my child, and I want you around. That is why I want you and Onyeka to get along. Ada replied, I understand, Mom, but I can't. I'm sorry. She grabbed Obinna's arm and tried to leave, but the queen asked her to stop. Are you working out on me because of this boy? She asked sternly. She turned to Obinna and warned him, stay away from Ada. If I see you close to her again, you won't like what I will do to you and your entire family. Before Obinna could respond, the queen cut him off. Ada turned to the queen and said, Obinna and I are just friends. Besides, I don't want anything to do with Onyeka. I'm sorry, Mom. With that, she ran off towards Obinna, leaving the queen and Onyeka behind. The queen's face turned red with anger as she watched Ada run off with Obinna. She turned to Onyeka, her eyes with blazing fury. This is all your fault, she spat. You and your careless words. Now she's gone, and I fear she may never come back. Onyeka shrugged. Unimportant. I merely spoke the truth, mother. She's a pest and a nuisance. We are better off without her. The queen's eyes narrowed, her voice cold and menacing. You will regret those words, Onyeka. Mark my words. Months passed, and Ada's behavior showed no signs of improving. Queen Chioma, convinced that Ada's closeness to Obinna was the root of the problem, decided to take drastic measures. She hired spies to gather information on Obinna, determined to find his weakness. The spies reported back that Obinna had financial struggles. They discovered that he was the son of a single mother living in a northern state and had been jobless since graduating. The queen believed that offering him a large sum of money would persuade him to stay away from Ada. With this information, the queen and his guards traveled to Obinna's state, arriving late at night. The next day, they stormed Obinna's residence, catching him off guard outside his home. Recognizing the queen, Obinna greeted her respectfully, but the queen responded coldly, "Keep your greetings to yourself, young man." She instructed her guards to give Obinna a bag filled with money. "This should be enough to help you start a new life. Stay away from Ada. I can do anything for the sake," she said. Obinna, unwavering, replied, "Ma'am, please take your money and leave." Just then, Norma, Obinna's mother, emerged from the kitchen. Drawn by the commotion, she was shocked to see the queen. The queen looked at Norma and said, "I am Queen Chioma. Your son must stay away from Ada. Take this money and make sure he keeps his distance. Norma looked at the bag of money, then at the queen. She took a deep breath and spoke firmly. Your Majesty, we appreciate your offer, but my son and I will not be bought. Obinna and Ada are friends, and money won't change that. The queen's face turned red with anger. You dare defy me? She hissed. Norma stood her ground. We live by our values, Your Majesty. Friendship and integrity can't be bought with money. The queen glared at them both, her anger boiling. Very well, she said coldly, but mark my words, this isn't over. With that, she turned and left, her guards following closely behind. Obinna and Norma watched as the queen left, feeling a mix of relief and resolve. Obinna looked at his mother, determination in his eyes. We won't let her scare us, Mom. Ada needs to know that we stand by her. Norma nodded, pride swelling in her heart. You are right, Obinna. We will stand by our friends, no matter what. Back at the palace, the queen seated with anger, plotting her next move. She refused to let Ada slip away, and was determined to break the bond between her and Obinna, no matter the cost. The tension between Queen Chioma, Ada and Obinna continues to escalate. Determined not to lose Ada to Obinna, the queen seeks more ruthless method to break their bond. She hires a private investigator to dig deeper into Obinna's past, hoping to find something to leverage against him. Meanwhile, Ada, oblivious to the queen's actions, grew closer to Obinna, relying on his support and friendship more than ever. In a twist of fate, Onyeka starts to see Ada in a different light, witnessing her unwavering loyalty and strength in the face of his mother's relentless pressure begins to change his perception. He starts to regret his harsh words and actions, realizing that his mother's obsession with control is driving Ada away. Ada's final exams are approaching, and she throws herself into her studies, trying to block out the turmoil in her personal life. Obinna continues to support her, encouraging her to stay focused and not to let the queen's threats derail her future. The queen's investigator uncovers a secret from Obinna's past that she believes will finally give her the upper hand. She plans to use this information to blackmail him into leaving Ada. As she prepares to execute her plan, the queen is unaware that her actions are pushing Onyeka further away and solidifying the bond between Ada and Obinna. Queen Chioma had been visiting Obinna again, determined to execute her plan. Since her last visit to Norma's house, something about Norma had bothered her, but she kept brushing it away. Losing Ada was what occupied her mind. When Queen Chioma arrived at Obinna's house, Norma's eyes widened. She recognized the woman standing before her. This was Queen Chioma, the queen whose son she had stolen all these years ago. Her heart raced with fear, and her mind reeled with the implications. Queen Chioma noticed that Norma's face looked familiar, but she couldn't quite place her. She tried to remember, her mind flashing back to the day she had handed her son to a cleaner in the health center. Seeing the look on the queen's face, Norma tried to run, but her legs felt heavy and her body trembled with guilt. She knew she couldn't escape the queen's wrath. Stop right there, woman, Queen Chioma commanded. Norma's eyes dropped and her body shook uncontrollably. She knew she was caught. The queen's grip on Norma's shirt tightened as she glared at her with a mix of anger and betrayal. You are the cleaner who stole my son from me all those years ago in the health center, she accused. Norma struggled to free herself, her eyes wide with fear. Leave me alone. I don't know what you are talking about, she cried out, but the queen's grip only tightened. The queen's guard moved in, their faces stern. My queen, we can call the police if you like, one of them suggested, eyeing Norma with suspicion. The mention of the police seemed to snap Norma back to reality. She knew she couldn't escape the truth any longer. Okay, I will let you know everything. Please let me tell you everything, she stammered, her eyes darting to Obinna, who was watching the scene unfold with disbelief. The queen's eyes narrowed. You would better start talking. Better start talking right away and fast about it. Where is my son? Norma's eyes dropped and her voice was low. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I was desperate, lonely, and childless. When you handed me the prince, I became greedy and couldn't bear the thought of giving him up. I know I've caused you so much pain, but please forgive me. The queen's expression turned icy cold. Forgive you? You expect me to forgive you after what you've done? You destroyed my marriage, my family, and my life. Where is my son? Norma's eyes rose and her gaze locked onto Obina. That's your son, Your Majesty, she said, her voice trembling. Obina is your son. The queen's eyes widened in shock as she stared at Obina. Queen Chioma's hand released its grip on Norma's shirt and she turned to Obina, her eyes overflowing with tears. She reached out to trembling hands and held his cheek, her voice barely above a whisper. My son. She quickly hugged him, her arms wrapping tightly around his body. Obina stood like a statue, trying to process what was happening. What is going on here? Obina asked, his voice laced with confusion and disbelief. Norma's eyes dropped, and her voice was barely audible. My son, I'm sorry. The queen is your real mother. I stole you from her years ago in the health center. Obina's eyes widened in shock. I don't believe it, she said, his voice shaking. This seems like a dream. You're lying, Mom. You have to be. The queen's grip on Obina tightened, her eyes pleading with him to believe her. It's the truth, my son. I'm your real mother. She stole you from me, and I've been searching for you ever since. Obina's eyes darted between Norma and the queen, his mind struggling to comprehend the shocking revelation. His world was turned upside down, and he didn't know what to believe. After Queen Chioma composed herself, she turned to Norma with a stern expression. My ears and eyes won't be the only ones to hear and see this, she said. The kingdom and the king will hear this. Come with me, Norma. You will face the consequences of your actions. Norma nodded, knowing she had no choice. Obina tried to intervene, begging Queen Chioma to spare his mother, but she stood firm. I'm sorry, Obina, Queen Chioma said, but justice must be served. Your mother's action cannot be unpunished. Obina reluctantly joined his mother and the queen in the car, her heart heavy with worry. As they journeyed to the east, he couldn't help but think about the fate that awaited him and his mother, Norma. The next day, they arrived at the kingdom. Norma was taken aback by the familiar surroundings. She had lived in the kingdom many years ago, and the memories came flooding back. They immediately headed to the palace. King Emeka welcomed his wife, Queen Chioma, with a warm embrace, but his expression turned puzzled when he saw Norma and Obina. Who are these people? He asked, his voice laced with curiosity. Queen Chioma took a deep breath before narrating the shocking tale of how Norma had stolen their son, Obina, from the health center many years ago. The king's face turned red and rage as he listened. He couldn't contain himself, and with a swift motion, he walked close to Norma and slapped Norma across her face. You wicked woman, King Emeka thundered. You stole my son many years ago. How dare you? Obina tried to intervene, pleading with his father to spare Norma, but his words fell on deaf ears. The king called the police to arrest Norma, and Obina was left feeling helpless and torn between his loyalty to his mother and his newfound real parents. As Norma was taken away by the police, Queen Chioma hugged Obina tightly, tears streaming down her face. My son, I'm sorry for all the years we've lost you, but now that we've found you, we will never let you go again. Obina, still in shock, hugged his mother back. I don't know what to say. This is all so overwhelming. King Emeka joins them, his anger dissipating as he looked at his son. Welcome home, Obina. We will get through this together as a family. Obina's world was turned upside down. He couldn't believe that his whole life had been a lie. He felt angry, hurt, and betrayed by Norma's actions. But as he looked at her, he saw the fear and remorse in her eyes, and his heart went out to her. Father, please, Obina begged King Emeka, don't punish her too harshly. She may have made a mistake, but she's still my mother. King Emeka's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. I will do what is just, my son, but I promise you, Noma will face the consequences of her actions. As the police took Noma away, Obina felt a sense of loss and confusion. He felt so lonely in the palace. Everything still new to him. He struggled to accept his new reality. The queen showered Obina with much attention, but he wasn't happy because his mom, Noma, was still in jail. The king tried all he could to brighten his mood, but to no avail. Obina felt like his new home was a prison, and he felt trapped. The king, noticing Obina's loneliness and his struggles to bond with them, decided to call Onyeka to come home from school. The king informed Onyeka that his long-lost brother had returned home. Onyeka was overjoyed with the news and decided to leave school immediately to meet his brother. Meanwhile, Obina called Ada and explained his situation to her, revealing that her godmother, the queen, was her real biological mother. Ada was surprised but promised Obina she would come visit him. After their conversation, Ada called her mom, Sarah, to share the news. Sarah was thrilled and told Ada they would visit the palace together to congratulate the queen on finding her lost son when Sarah returned from school. Onyeka returned home, eager to meet his long-lost brother. He quickly greeted the king and his mom, Chioma, and asked where his brother was. He's in his room, the king replied. Let's go see him. He's struggling to adjust here. They went to Obina's room, knocked on the door, and Obina asked them to come in. As Onyeka entered the room first, he was shocked to see Obina, the same Obina who is very close to Ada. Onyeka had a mixed reaction, trying to hug Obina but feeling somehow awkward. The brothers stood there, unsure of what to say or do next, their hearts filled with a mix of emotions. They had a lot to catch up on, a lot to talk about, but for now, they just stood there, trying to process their newfound brotherhood. Within a short space of days, Obina and Onyeka started bonding, sharing stories about their upbringing and experiences. However, Obina still felt a distance from his real parents, the king and queen. Despite their efforts to connect with him, Obina's heart seemed somewhere else. The king and queen, concerned about Obina's distant behavior, called him to a private meeting. Obina, our son, we are glad to have you back after all these years, the king said, his voice filled with emotion. But we notice you are not bonding with us like you have with Onyeka. What can we do to change that? Obina looked at them with a determined gaze. Release my mom, Norma, from jail. I know what she did was wrong, but she is kind to me and sacrificed so much for my education. Please forgive her for my sake, and I will be happy. The king's expression softened. Is that all? Obina, if we release Norma, you start accepting us and bonding with us like you have with Onyeka. Obina nodded. Yes, father. If you do that for me, I'll be glad and happy, and I can start building a relationship with you and mother. I promise. The king nodded. I understand. I will grant your request next week. I'm currently occupied with kingdom activities, but I promise you, Obina, I will release Norma from jail. Thank you for being honest with us, son. Obina's face lit up with a smile. Thank you, father. Thank you, mother. I appreciate it. The king and queen smiled, hoping that this was the start of a new chapter in their relationship with their long-lost son. A week later, Obina, Onyeka, and the royal guards arrived at the station to release Norma. She returned alongside the prince, apologizing profusely to the king and queen once again. Kneeling before them, she thanked them for her release. Ada and her mother Sarah entered the palace. They approached the queen, congratulating her on her return of her son. Ada then made her way to Obina, who was sitting on a nearby couch. Congratulations on finding your lost home, she said with a warm smile. Obina's expression turned serious. I'm angry with you, Ada. I called you all this while, but you refused to come. Ada apologized. I'm sorry, Obina. I've been busy in school. It's fine. I know school comes first. Ada added. I know you were just teasing me, Obina. Obina laughed. You are right. I was just joking. The two friends laughed together, their friendship evident. Onyeka watched from afar, a thoughtful expression on his face. Onyeka stood up, his eyes fixed on his parents. Father, I have something to say. The king nodded, encouraged him to continue. Father, Mom, what Norma did was wrong. Thank you for releasing her. Please forgive her and ask her to stand up. The king smiled, and Norma stood up and sat down. The king praised Onyeka. You are now very mature. I like this. Onyeka continued. Father, I have always prayed for my long lost brother to return home, which he did. I have noticed Ada and Obinna are very close. I wish Obinna and Ada to get married instead of me. The queen's face turned a deep shade of crimson as her rage boiled over like a pot about to overflow. No, 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 that is not possible. She thundered, her voice echoing through the palace like a stormy weather. Ada will marry you, Onyeka, not Obinna, she insisted, her eyes blazing with fury. The king's calm demeanor tacky, constructed with the queen's fury, like a peaceful lake on a summer day. My dear, let us hear Ada's choice, he said, his voice soothing like a gentle breeze. But the queen would not be swayed, her determination like a rock. Onyeka must marry Ada, she insisted, her eyes flashing like lightning. Onyeka already said he won't marry her. Let's hear from Ada, the king said, turning to Ada. Which of my sons would you love to marry, my dear? Ada's smile was radiant like the sun as she made her choice clear. I choose Obinna, she said, her voice steady like a rock. The queen's anger reached a fever pitch, like a volcano about to erupt. It won't happen, she shouted, her voice dripping with venom like a snake. You will not marry Obinna, you will marry Onyeka. Why insist on Onyeka, who has already said he does not want Ada? And Ada also does not want Onyeka, but Obinna. The king asked calmly. Onyeka will marry Ada, that is final, the queen said, standing up and starting to leave. The king asked her to stop. My final decision, Ada will marry Obinna, the king said firmly. It's impossible. It can't happen. Abomination! 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 The queen screamed, leaving everyone in surprise. Obinna stood up and addressed the queen. Mom, calm down. He turned to the king and continued, well, father, I don't have romantic feelings towards Ada. She's a friend, a study mate, and like a kid sister I never had. I wish to pursue further academic studies. Ada is still in school. Let her concentrate and graduate with flying colors before considering marriage. He turned to Onyeka and said, thank you for respecting me and having my best interest at heart. If I return from my studies, I will consider marrying Ada, but if only she's still single. For now, I'm not interested. The queen's heart felt at peace, hiding her true motives. King Emeka smiled, impressed with Obinna's words. Obinna, that's wise of you, but you mentioned that if you return from your studies and Ada is still single, you will consider marrying her. I want to bless your future union as husband and wife. He asked Ada and Obinna to kneel down. And as they did, he raised his hands to pray for their future together. But Queen Chioma suddenly shouted, stop it! It can't happen! It's an abomination! The king asked, confused, why do you call it an abomination, Chioma? Onyeka asked, Mom, what's gotten over you? Sarah added, my queen, you should be happy one of your sons will marry Ada, whom you have always loved. The queen's voice rose. Everything that's happened is an abomination. She dragged Obinna and Ada to their feet, preventing them from kneeling again. The king tried to proceed, but the queen's outburst persisted. I said, this is an abomination. Stop it, my king. The king's eyes narrowed, his voice laced with frustration. What is the meaning of this, Chioma? He demanded. The prayer itself is an affront. The queen spat, her face contorted in a mix of anger and desperation. The king's expression turned stern, his words dripping with warning. I don't know what darkness has consumed you, my queen, but I suggest you retreat to your chambers and collect your rest. Do not interrupt me again, lest you face my wrath. The king turned to Obinna and Ada, his tone softening. My children, please kneel down again. Let me pray for both of you. He raised his hands, ready to bestow his blessings, but Chioma dragged them back. her voice rising to a frantic pitch. It's an abomination, a big sin. You cannot bless this union. She glared at the king, her eyes blazing with determination. Sarah's brow furrowed in confusion. What sin, my queen? How can our children's happiness be a sin or an abomination? The queen's eyes flashed with a wise intensity, her words trembling out in a mad rush. You don't understand, Sarah. The king's patience wore thin. Guards, take the queen from here. She's lost her senses. The guards moved to escort Queen Chioma from the room, but she wrestled free, her voice echoing through the hall. Don't pray for them, my king. They are siblings, your own children. The very thought is incestuous. The room fell silent, the air thick with shock and disbelief. Time itself seemed to freeze, as if the queen's words had struck a chord of horror in all who heard them. The king stood up from his royal chair, his eyes blazing with anger, and the entire room gazed at Chioma in shock. What do you mean they are siblings? The king demanded, his voice thundering through the hall. Chioma, tears streaming down her face. Chioma replied, my king, I'm sorry, they are siblings. I did everything out of desperation. It happened many years ago when I got pregnant with Ada, she said, pointing to Ada, who looked shocked and confused. You told me if I didn't give birth to a son, I would lose you and your love. You would send me away and marry another woman. The queen's words poured out in a torrent of despair, out of desperation. When I gave birth, another woman also gave birth, she said, pointing to Sarah. She gave birth to Onyeka. I switched the babies just to keep my marriage. Because if I had told you I gave birth to a girl, you would not only drive me away, but I wouldn't know the fate of my daughter. So that is why I did what I did. But I made sure I stayed in Ada's life. I hired a fake kidnapper to try and kidnap Ada, and I came to their rescue and entered Ada's life by that means. The king's face turned red with rage. So you did all these evil things. You are a devil, he shouted. Onyeka's eyes widened in shock. Mom, do you mean I'm not your real son? He asked, his voice trembling. Ada still looked confused, her eyes darting between the queen and the king. So all this fake love and care you have been showing me all these years, it's because you stole my son? Sarah asked, her voice laced with pain and betrayal. The king's anger boiled over, and he quickly dialed the police on his phone. Come to my house immediately, he backed into the receiver. But Obinna quickly snatched the phone from the king's hand and spoke into it. Do not come, it's a family matter. We will handle it ourselves. He turned to the king. Obinna stepped forward, his voice calm and authoritative. Father, who are you calling the police to arrest? The queen or yourself? You are equally to blame for this situation. The king's face turned red with anger, but Obinna continued, his words piercing the tension in the room. Mother, what you did was so wrong. But father, you are to blame for perpetuating a harmful belief that has destroyed many marriages. You blamed mother for not producing a male heir. But the truth is, the gender of a child is determined by the father, not the mother. Obinna turned to the king, his eyes locked on his. Every woman has SS chromosomes, while every man has XY chromosomes. When a man and woman conceive, the man's sperm determines the sex of the child. If the sperm carries an X chromosome, the child will be a girl, and if it carries a Y chromosome, the child will be a boy. When Chioma's eyes widened, a look of understanding dawning on her face. So you mean it's not my fault that I had a girl? She asked Obinna. Obinna nodded. Exactly, mother. It's not your fault. Father, your desire for a male heir led you to blame mother. And that blame led to this tragic situation. But it's not too late to learn from our mistakes and move forward. The king's face softened, his eyes filled with a newfound understanding. Obinna, my son, you are right. I was blind to the truth, and my blindness led to this pain. Forgive me, Chioma, my queen. Forgive me, Ada and Onyeka, my children. And forgive me, Sarah, for my part in this deception. Sarah's eyes welled up with tears as the king and queen turned to her. Forgive me, Sarah, the queen said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was so blinded by my desire to keep my marriage that I didn't see the harm I was causing. Can you ever forgive me? Sarah nodded, her face wet with tears. I forgive you both. I know that you were both acting out of desperation and fear, but I am glad that the truth is finally out and we can move forward from here. As the truth finally came to light, the room was filled with tears of joy and reconciliation. Sarah embraced Onyeka, her long lost son, holding him tightly as they both wept with happiness. Ada, with a heart full of forgiveness, hugged her mother Chioma and then her father the king. I love you both, she said, her voice trembling with emotion, and I forgive you, mother, for your mistakes. The king and queen, overjoyed to have their children back, held them close, never wanting to let them go again. Noma, who had been watching from the sidelines, felt a weight lift off her shoulders as she saw the family reunited. She knew that she had played a part in their pain, but she was glad to see that they had found forgiveness and happiness. As they all hugged each other, the room was filled with laughter and tears of joy. The king and queen promised to never let their family turn apart again. As the days turned into weeks, Obinna grew more confident in his role as a prince. He spent time with the king, learning about leadership and the responsibilities that came with it. King Emeka was proud of his son and enjoyed teaching him the ways of the kingdom. Queen Chioma also spent a lot of time with Obinna. She shared stories about their family history and the traditions that were important to them. Obinna loved listening to these stories and felt a deep connection to his heritage. One day, Queen Chioma said to Obinna, "My son, you are destined for great things. You have a kind heart and a strong spirit. I know you will make a wonderful king someday." Obinna felt a warmth in his heart. "Thank you, Mom. I will do my best to make you and Father proud." Meanwhile, Ada was excelling in her studies and making new friends in the palace. She enjoyed her lessons and was eager to learn everything she could about the kingdom. She and Obinna often shared their experiences and supported each other through the change they were facing. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, King Emeka raised his glass and said, "To our family, we have faced many challenges, but we have come through them stronger and more united. Let us always remember the importance of love, forgiveness, and togetherness." The family clinked their glasses and smiled at each other, feeling a sense of hope and happiness. As time went on, Obinna continued to visit Noma. He wanted to make sure she knew that she still cared for her, despite everything that had happened. During one of the visits, Noma said to him, "Obinna, I am so proud of the person you have become. You are wise, kind, and compassionate. Your parents must be very proud of you too." Obinna smiled. "Thank you, Mom. I want to make sure that everyone I care about is happy. That includes you." Norma's eyes filled with tears. "You have a big heart, my son. I am so grateful to have had the chance to be your mother, even if it was only for a short time." Obinna hugged her tightly. "You will always be part of my life, Mom, and I will always love you." Back at the palace, Obinna and Ada continued to grow and learn. They made new memories and strengthened their bond as siblings. Queen Chioma and King Emeka were always there to guide and support them, ensuring they felt loved and valued. The family faced many challenges, but they overcame them with love and understanding. They learned that forgiveness and unity were the keys to healing and happiness. As they stood together in the palace garden, looking out at their beautiful kingdom, Obinna said, "We have come a long way, but this is just the beginning. Our future is bright, and we will face it together as a family." The king, queen, Ada and Obinna smiled at each other, knowing that they were ready to take on whatever came their way. They were united by the bond of family, and that bond would carry them through any challenges they might face. And so, the family continued to heal, finding joy in their love for one another. They knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, but they were ready to face it together, with hearts full of love and hope. Back in the palace, life was slowly returning to normal. King Emeka and Queen Chioma were happy to have their children, Obinna and Ada, with them. However, there was still one matter they needed to resolve. Onyeka. Onyeka was living with his real mother, Sarah, but the king and queen had grown attached to him. After all, they had raised him since he was a baby. They wanted Onyeka to live with them in the palace so they could all be together as a family. One sunny afternoon, the king and queen invited Onyeka and Sarah to the palace to discuss the matter. The king began the conversation with a gentle smile. Onyeka, we would like you to live here with us. You are our son, and we have always loved you. This palace is your home. Onyeka listened carefully and then replied, Thank you, father. I appreciate your love and care, but I can't leave my real mother, Sarah, alone. She needs someone too, and I need to bond with her as my real mother. Queen Chioma's eyes softened with understanding. We understand you, Onyeka. It's important for you to be with Sarah, but please know that you are always welcome here. The palace is your home, and Sarah is welcome too. Sarah, who was sitting quietly, looked at the queen and said, Thank you for your kindness, your majesty. Onyeka and I will visit often. We want to be a part of your lives too. The king nodded. That's wonderful to hear. We want to be one big family, supporting each other. Despite this arrangement, there were still challenges. Ada and Onyeka found it difficult to get along at first. They had grown up separately and had different experiences. They didn't always understand each other, and sometimes they argued. One day, Ada and Onyeka were sitting in the palace garden trying to study together. Ada sighed. Onyeka, why is it hard for us to get along? We are supposed to be family. Onyeka looked thoughtful. I think it's because we have lived different lives. We didn't grow up together, so we don't know each other well. Ada nodded. Maybe you are right, but we can try to get to know each other better. We can be friends even if it takes time. As the days went by, Ada and Onyeka made an effort to spend more time together. They played games, helped each other with their studies, and shared stories about their childhoods. Slowly, they started to see each other as friends. As they shared their stories, they realized they had more in common than they thought. They began to understand and appreciate each other more. Meanwhile, Obinna was adjusting to his new life in the palace. He missed Norma, the woman who had raised him, but he was also getting to know his real parents, the king and queen. They were patient with him, understanding the difficulty of his situation. One day, Queen Chioma sat down with Obinna and said, My son, I know that it is hard for you, but we are here for you and we will support you in every way. You are our son and we love you very much. Obinna nodded. Thank you, Mom. It's just that I miss Norma. She may have done something terrible, but she was the only mother I knew for so long. Queen Chioma's eyes softened. I know, my dear, and we will do everything we can to help you stay connected with her. But remember, we are your family too, and we will always be here for you. Obinna hugged his mother, feeling a sense of comfort. I'll try my best to adjust, Mom. Thank you for understanding. As time passed, the family began to heal. Onyeka and Ada became closer friends, learning to trust each other and rely on one another. They faced challenges together and supported each other through difficult times. One evening, the family gathered for dinner in the grand dining. King Emeka looked around the table at his children and smiled. I am so proud of all of you, he said. We have faced many challenges, but we have come through them stronger and more united. Let us always remember that family is important. Back in Sarah's house, life was also changing. Sarah was happy to see Onyeka becoming close to his siblings. She often visited the palace and spent time with the royal family. She and Queen Chioma had many long talks, learning to understand and respect each other. One day, Sarah and Chioma were sitting in the garden watching their children. Sarah said, "I never imagined our lives would turn out this way, but I am grateful for your kindness and understanding." Queen Chioma smiled. "I am grateful too, Sarah. Our children have taught us a lot about forgiveness and love. I am glad we can be a family despite everything that has happened." As the days went by, the family continued to grow closer. They faced challenges together and celebrated their victories. They knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, but they were ready to face it together, united by the bond of family. One day, King Emeka called Onyeka to his study. "Onyeka," he said, "I want you to know that you have a special place in this family. You are a part of us, and we love you very much. You will always have a home here." Onyeka felt a warmth in his heart. "Thank you, Father. That means a lot to me. I'll do my best to make you proud." The king smiled. "I know you will, my son. We are proud of you already." As the family stood together in the palace garden, looking out at their beautiful kingdom, they knew that they were ready to face the future. They were united by the bond of family, and that bond would carry them through any challenges they might face. Obinna, Ada, and Onyeka smiled at each other, knowing that they were stronger together. They had learned the importance of love, forgiveness, and togetherness, and they were ready to face whatever the future might bring. As time passed, the bond between Obinna, Ada, and Onyeka grew stronger. They supported each other through challenges and celebrated their successes together. The palace became a place of love, laughter, unity, where everyone felt at home. One bright morning, King Emeka called for a family meeting in the grand hall. The room was filled with anticipation as the family gathered. The king stood before them, his eyes filled with pride and warmth. "My beloved family," he began, "we have come a long way. We have faced many challenges, but we have overcome them together. Today, I want to celebrate our journey and the love that binds us." He looked at Obinna, Ada, and Onyeka. "You three have shown incredible strength and resilience. You have learned to support each other and have grown into remarkable individuals. I am proud of each of you." Queen Chioma stepped forward, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "We have learned the importance of forgiveness and understanding. Our family is stronger because of the love we share. Let us always remember to cherish and support one another." The family members exchanged smiles and hugs, feeling the warmth of their unity. They knew that their journey had not been easy, but their love had carried them through. One day, as they sat in the palace garden, Ada said, "We have all grown so much. I used to think we were so much different, but now I see that we have so much in common." Onyeka nodded. "I'm glad we have become friends. It's nice to have siblings who understand and support each other." Obinna added, "We have learned to forgive and move forward. Our family is a testament to the power of love." The years passed. The family continued to thrive. Obinna pursued his academic studies, always remembering the lessons he had learned from his parents. Ada excelled in her own endeavors, finding her path with support of her family. Onyeka balanced his time between his real mother, Sarah, and the palace, cherishing the bonds he had with both families. Sarah often visited the palace, sharing in the family's joys and challenges. She and Queen Chioma developed a deep friendship, supporting each other through life's ups and downs. One evening, as the sun set over the kingdom, the family gathered for a special celebration. It was the anniversary of the day they had all been reunited. The palace was filled with music, laughter, and the aroma of delicious food. King Emeka raised his glass, his voice filled with emotion. "To my family, the greatest blessing of my life. May our love continue to grow, and may we continue to stand together." The family clinked their glasses, feeling the love and unity that had brought them together. As the celebration continued, Obinna, Ada, and Onyeka sat together, Reflecting on their journey, they had faced many challenges, but their love for each other had carried them through. We are stronger together, Ada said, smiling at her brothers. Yes, we are. Onyeka agreed. Our bond is unbreakable. Obinna nodded. And we will always be here for each other no matter what. The family danced and laughed, enjoying the joyous occasion. They knew that life would continue to present challenges, but they were confident in their ability to overcome them together. As the night drew to a close, the family stood together, looking out at their beautiful kingdom. They knew that their love and unity were the greatest treasure they possessed. They were ready to face whatever the future might bring, united by the bond of family. And so, the family lived happily ever after, cherishing the love and unity that had brought them together. They faced each challenges with courage and strength, and knowing that their bond was unbreakable. Once upon a time, in the cozy village of Ebenabo, there lived a princess named Ugma. She was the apple of her parents' eyes, the king and queen of Ebenabo kingdom. Ugoma was as beautiful as the sunrise, with long flowing hair like golden threads and eyes that sparkled like stars in the night sky. Everyone in the village admired her, for she was indeed a sight to behold. But as Princess Ugoma grew older, something changed within her. She became rude and arrogant, thinking herself better than all others. She would turn her nose up at those she thought were beneath her, treating them with disrespect and unkindness. Even the elders of the village were not spared from her sharp tongue. Her parents, wise and kind-hearted rulers, watched with heavy hearts as their daughter's behavior worsened. They knew they had to do something to guide her back to the path of kindness and humility. One bright morning, the king and queen called Princess Ugoma to the royal chambers. They sat her down with gentle expression, ready to teach her an important lesson. Ugoma, my dear, the queen began, her voice soft but serious. We have noticed a change in your behavior lately. The princess shrugged, looking indifferent. What do you mean, mother? I am just being myself. The king sighed deeply, his eyes filled with concern. But being yourself should not mean treating others poorly. As a princess, you have a duty to lead by example and show kindness to all. Ugoma rolled her eyes, a gesture of defiance. Why should I care about the common people? They are beneath me. Her parents exchanged a knowing glance before the queen spoke again. You may be a princess by birth, but true royalty is shown by one's character. It is not enough to simply wear the crown. You must also earn the respect and admiration of your people. The princess coughed, crossing her arms over her chest. And how do you expect me to do that? The king leaned forward, his gaze intense, by treating others with respect and kindness, by showing empathy and understanding, by being the kind of leader that Ebenabo deserves. For a moment, Princess Ugoma remained silent, her thoughts whirling like a stormy sea. Finally, she lowered her head, a hint of humility in her voice. I understand, father. I will try to do better. Her parents smiled, relief washing over them like a gentle breeze. That is all we ask, my dear, said the queen, her voice filled with warmth. Now go, and let your actions speak louder than words. With a newfound determination, Princess Ugoma left the royal chambers, her heart heavy with the weight of her parents' words. She knew that changing her ways would not be easy, but she was willing to try, for the sake of her kingdom and her own redemption. As Ugoma walked through the palace gardens, she thought about her parents' advice. The vibrant flowers and the singing birds seemed to whisper reminders of kindness and grace. She remembered the smiles of the villagers and how they used to greet her with joy. But now, there were only weary glances and hushed whispers. As the days turned into weeks, And the weeks into months, Princess Ugoma's behavior did not improve. Despite her parents' wise counsel, she continued to treat others with disdain and arrogance. One sunny afternoon, as Princess Ugoma lounged in the palace garden, her two closest friends, Nneka and Ifoma, came to visit her. Nneka was a bold and honest friend, never afraid to speak to her or speak her mind, while Ifoma was a loyal companion who always seemed to agree with whatever the princess said. "Hello, my friends," exclaimed Princess Ugoma, a bright smile lighting up her face as she saw Nneka and Ifoma approaching. "Hello, princess," greeted Nneka, her tone serious. "We need to talk." Princess Ugoma raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "Talk about what?" Nneka hesitated for a moment before speaking, her gaze steady. "About your behavior, Ugoma. It's not right, and it's hurting people." Princess Ugoma's smile faded, replaced by a sadness. "What do you mean? I am a princess and I can do as I please." Ifeoma nodded in agreement, her voice gentle. "Yes, princess, you are just being yourself." But Nneka shook her head, her expression grave. "No, Ugoma, you are being cruel and selfish. You need to change." Princess Ugoma's eyes flashed with anger, her fist clenching at her sides. "How dare you speak to me like that? If you don't like it, then maybe we shouldn't be friends anymore." Nneka sighed, sadness etched on her face. "I speak the truth because I care about you, Ugoma. But if you choose to continue down this path, then perhaps it best we part ways." The princess's heart sank at Nneka's words, but her pride refused to let her admit defeat. "Fine, leave. I don't need you. Leave." With that, Nneka turned and walked away, leaving Princess Ugoma alone with her thoughts. Ifeoma watched silently, torn between loyalty to her friend and the nagging feeling that perhaps Nneka was right. After Nneka had gone, Princess Ugoma turned to Ifeoma, her eyes pleading. "You don't agree with her, do you, Ifeoma?" Ifeoma forced a smile, her voice reassuring. "Of course not, princess. Nneka is just jealous of our friendship. You are perfect just the way you are." Relief flooded over Princess Ugoma's heart and she embraced Ifeoma tightly. "Thank you, Ifeoma. You are the only true friend I have." But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted in Princess Ugoma's mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps Nneka was right and that she needed to change her ways. But for now, she pushed those thoughts aside, content to bask in the comfort of Ifeoma's unwavering support. On a bright and sunny day in the village of Ebenabo, Princess Ugoma strode through the bustling streets with her faithful friend Ifeoma by her side and her maids trailing behind her. As they walked, a handsome young man named Chinedu, a well-known palm wine tapper in the village, crossed paths with Princess Ugoma. His heart skipped a beat at the sight of her, for he had long admired the princess from afar and had been waiting for the perfect opportunity to speak to her. "Good day, princess," greeted Chinedu, his voice filled with nervousness and admiration. Princess Ugoma stopped in her tracks, her expression one of annoyance. "What do you want?" she snapped, her tone sharp. Chinedu's cheek flushed with embarrassment, but he persisted, determined to express his feelings. I I just wanted to say hello, princess. I admire you greatly." And before he could finish his sentence, Princess Ugoma erupted in anger, her words dripping with scorn. "Admire me? Ha! What could someone like you possibly admire about me? You are nothing but a lowly palm wine tapper. How dare you even think that you could be worthy of me?" With a swift motion, Princess Ugoma raised her hand and delivered a stinging slap to Chinedu's cheek, caused him to stagger backward in shock. The onlookers gasped in horror at the princess's cruel words and actions, but she paid them no mind as she stormed away, her maids hurrying to keep pace with her. Chinedu stood frozen in place, the sting of the princess's words cutting deeper than any physical pain. He felt a mix of hurt, anger and humiliation washed over him. But beneath it all, there remained a flicker of determination. As Princess Ugoma disappeared from view, Ifoma approached Chinedu, her expression sympathetic. I'm sorry about Princess Ugoma's behavior, Chinedu. She can be difficult. Chinedu forced a fake smile, though his heart still ached. It's alright, Ifoma. Thank you for your kindness. With a heavy heart, Chinedu continued on his way, his thoughts consumed by the encounter with the princess. Despite the hurtful words and the humiliation, he couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps there was more to Princess Ugoma than met the eye. Deep down, he sensed that her cruelty was merely a mask for deeper insecurities and pain. As Chinedu walked away, he thought about how unfairly he had been treated. He decided that he would not let this experience crush his spirit. He would continue to work hard and be kind to others, hoping that one day Princess Ugoma might see the error of her ways. Back at the palace, Ugoma was still fuming. Who does he think he is? She muttered under her breath. A Mepon wine sapper daring to speak to me like that. Ifoma stayed quiet, unsure of how to comfort her friend. She knew Ugoma's heart was troubled, but she also knew that her friend needed to realize the impact of her actions on her own. That evening, Ugoma sat alone in her room, replaying the day's events in her mind. She remembered the hot look on Chinedu's face and the gasp of the villagers. For the first time, she felt a pang of guilt. Could it be that she's gone too far? She pushed the thought aside, but it still lingered, making her feel uneasy. Weeks passed since Princess Ugoma's encounter with Chinedu, the palm wine tapper. Despite the hurt and humiliation he had experienced, Chinedu couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to confront the princess once more. With his friend Amaka by his side, he decided to pay a visit to the palace, determined to speak his mind and perhaps find closure. As they approached the grand gates of the palace, Chinedu's heart pounded with nervous anticipation. Emeka, ever the voice of reason, warned him to brace himself for whatever might happen. Chinedu, are you sure about this? Asked Emeka, his brow furrowed with concern. The princess has already shown her true colors. Why put yourself through this again? But Chinedu remained resolute, his eyes filled with determination. I need to do this, Emeka. I need to confront her and let her know how her words and actions have affected me. With a nod of understanding, Emeka followed Chinedu through the palace gates, their footsteps echoing against the stone walls as they made their way to the royal chambers. Upon reaching the palace courtyard, Chinedu approached one of the guards and respectfully requested an audience with Princess Ugoma. The guard, recognizing Chinedu from their previous encounter, hesitated for a moment before reluctantly agreeing to fetch the princess. Moments later, Princess Ugoma emerged from the palace, her expression one of annoyance as she laid eyes on Chinedu and Emeka standing before her. What is the meaning of this? Demanding the princess, her voice sharp with irritation. Why have you summoned me, peasant? Chinedu took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. Princess Ugoma, I have come to speak with you about... Before he could finish his sentence, Princess Ugoma erupted in anger, her words cutting like a knife. How dare you address me in such a manner? You are nothing but a low life, a palm wine tapper unworthy of my time or attention. With a swift emotion, Princess Ugoma lashed out at the guard who had called her out, delivering a stinging slap to his cheek. The guard recoiled in shock, his eyes wide with disbelief at the princess's unprovoked attack. Turning her attention back to Chinedu and Emeka, Princess Ugoma's eyes flashed with disdain. And as for you two, how dare you come here and disturb my peace? You are nothing but peasants, unworthy of even standing in my presence. Chinedu's heart sank at the princess's cruel words, the pain of her rejection cutting deeper than any physical blow. But before he could respond, Emeka stepped forward, his voice firm with resolve. Enough, princess, Emeka said, his eyes blazing with indignation. Chinedu may be a palm wine tapper, but he's a man of honor and integrity. He deserves far more respect than you have shown him. Princess Ugoma scoffed, her expression one of disdain. And who are you to speak to me in such a manner? Eh? You fool. But before Emeka could respond, a voice echoed through the courtyard, cutting through the tension like a ray of sunlight. What is going on here? Chinedu and Emeka turned to see the king and queen standing in the doorway of the palace, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. Princess Ugoma's eyes widened in panic as she struggled to find words to explain herself. Father, mother, it is nothing. These fools. But the king held up a hand, his expression stern. Enough, Ugoma. We saw everything. The king then turned to Princess Ugoma, his voice firm and gentle. Ugoma, you must apologize to Chinedu, Emeka and the guard. Now! Princess Ugoma hesitated, her pride battling with the weight of her parents' command. Finally, she lowered her head, her voice trembling with reluctance. I apologize for my behavior, she said, looking at Chinedu, Emeka and the guard. I was wrong. The king turned to Chinedu and Emeka, his gaze filled with regret. I am deeply sorry for my daughter's behavior. Please accept our sincerest apologies. Chinedu's eyes welled up with tears at the king's words, his heart heavy with emotion. Thank you, your majesty. With a nod of gratitude, Chinedu and Emeka turned to leave the palace, their heads held high despite the pain and humiliation they had endured. As they walked away, Chinedu couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over him, knowing that he had finally stood up for himself and confronted the princess who had caused him so much anguish. As Chinedu and Emeka left the palace grounds, they couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. Chinedu felt a mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a glimmer of hope. He hoped that Princess Ugoma would take this experience to heart and begin to change her ways. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Princess Ugoma retreated to her chambers, her mind swirling with confusion and shame. She had never been so humiliated in her life. The words of her father, the king, and the looks of disappointment from the villagers haunted her. 2 days after the encounter at the palace, Chinedu and Emeka sat together at a local bar, their conversation filled with thoughts of the recent events. You know, Chinedu, Emeka began, taking a sip of his drink. I think it's time you moved on from Princess Ugoma. She's not worth your time or your heart. Chinedu nodded in agreement, a sense of resolve settling over him. You're right, Emeka. There are plenty of other girls in Ebenabo with kind hearts and beautiful spirits. Emeka grinned, clapping his friend on the back. That's the spirit, my friend. And hey, what about Ifoma? She's a good friend of the princess and a kind soul. Maybe she's the one for you. Chinedu pondered Emeka's suggestion for a moment before nodding thoughtfully. You know what? I think I'll give it a try. It's worth a shot, right? Emeka chuckled, raising his glass in a toast. To new beginnings, Chinedu. May you find happiness and love wherever you go. With a laugh, Chinedu clinked his glass against Emeka's, the sound ringing out like a promise of hope. Days later, Chinedu mustered up the courage to visit Ifoma at her parents' house. With a nervous heart and hopeful spirit, he expressed his intention to Ifoma, asking for her hand in marriage. Ifoma listened attentively, her eyes soft with understanding. After much thought and consideration, she agreed to Chinedu's proposal, but suggested they take some time to get to know each other better before making any final decisions. Chinedu agreed wholeheartedly, feeling a sense of joy and anticipation at the prospect of building a future with Ifoma by his side. As they sat together, sharing a meal prepared by Ifoma herself, laughter and conversation filled the air. Suddenly, Princess Ugoma entered unnoticed with her maids. Her eyes widened in disbelief and anger as she saw Chinedu sitting beside Ifoma. "What is the meaning of this?" she asked, her voice sharp with indignation. Ifoma smiled sweetly, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Oh, princess, Chinedu is here to ask for my hand in marriage." The princess burst out laughing, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You two marry each other. Ha! You both deserve each other." With that, Princess Ugoma turned on her heel and stormed out of the house, leaving Chinedu and Ifoma alone once more. After Ugoma left, Ifoma turned to Chinedu, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you sure about this, Chinedu? Being involved with me might cause you more trouble with the princess." Chinedu took her hand gently, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I am sure, Ifoma. I want to be with someone who respects and cares for me. I believe we can be happy together." Over the following months, Chinedu and Ifoma spent more time together, getting to know each other better. They visited the market, helped each other with daily tasks, and shared stories and dreams. The villagers noticed the growing bond between them and supported their relationship. Few weeks later, they both got married. Princess Ugoma spent a serene afternoon in the palace garden, surrounded by her loyal maids who tended to her every need. The gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, and the sweet fragrance of the flowers filled the air. But the tranquility was soon shattered by the arrival of a palace guard, his expression solemn as he approached the princess. "Princess Ugoma, your presence is urgently required at the palace," the guard announced, his voice tinged with urgency. Curious, Princess Ugoma followed the guard back to the palace, wondering what could be so important that her parents needed to see her. Upon her arrival, Princess Ugoma was met by her parents, the king and queen of Ebenabo, who had a surprise awaiting her. Standing beside them was a handsome young man named Obinna, the son of the prime minister from a neighboring village. Obinna was well dressed, with an air of confidence befitting his status as a successful businessman who resided in the city. "Princess Ugoma," began the king, his voice warm and welcoming, "allow me to introduce you to Obinna. He has come to ask for your hand in marriage." Princess Ugoma's eyes widened in surprise at the unexpected proposal. She looked Obinna up and down with a critical eye, a disdainful smile forming on her lips. "Marry me?" she scoffed, unable to contain her amusement. "He is not fit to be my husband." Obinna's parents exchanged uncomfortable glances, their faces flushed with embarrassment at the princess's disrespectful words. Obinna himself stood tall, though inwardly he felt a pang of hurt at Princess Ugoma's rejection. The king's expression darkened with displeasure at his daughter's behavior. "Ugoma, this is unacceptable. Obinna is a fine young man, and his proposal deserves your respect and consideration." But Princess Ugoma shook her head defiantly, her pride refusing to yield. "No, father, I will not lower myself to marry someone beneath my standard. Obinna should leave this palace at once and never return to ask for my hand in marriage again." With that, Princess Ugoma turned on her heel and walked away, leaving her parents and the guests stunned by her brazen refusal. Obinna's parents were mortified and heartbroken by the princess's harsh rejection, while the king struggled to find the right words to apologize for his daughter's behavior. "I am deeply sorry for Princess Ugoma's disrespect." The king apologized to Obinna and his parents, his voice heavy with regret. "Please forgive her." Obinna and his parents rose from their seats, their pride wounded but their dignity intact. With a nod of acknowledgement, they bid farewell to the king and queen, their hearts heavy with disappointment as they departed from the palace. As Obinna and his parents left, the queen turned to king, her eyes filled with concern. What are we going to do about Ugma? Her pride and arrogance are driving away everyone. The king sighed deeply, his brow furrowed with anger. I do not know, my dear, but we must find a way to teach her humility and respect before it is too late. Meanwhile, Princess Ugoma retreated to her chambers, fuming with anger. How dared they to marry me off like that? She muttered to herself. I deserve someone far better than a mere businessman. Days passed, and the story of Princess Ugoma's disgraceful refusal spread throughout the village. The villagers whispered among themselves, shocked and disappointed by their princess's behavior. They had hoped that she would find a good match and bring honor to Ebenabo, but her actions only brought shame. Despite Princess Ugoma's beauty and status, her arrogance and bad behavior continued to repel potential suitors, leaving her parents dismayed and the villagers disheartened. They tried as they might to reason with her. Princess Ugoma remained obstinate, refusing to heed their advice and change her ways. One fateful day, as Princess Ugoma strolled through the village with her maids, she encountered an old woman making her way down the dusty road. The old woman, bent with age and leaning heavily on her walking stick, paid no heed to the princess as she passed by. Infuriated by the old woman's apparent disregard for her status, Princess Ugoma called out to her, her voice sharp with indignation. Stop right there, she commanded, her tone laced with contempt. How dare you pass by the beautiful princess of Ebenabo without showing proper respect? The old woman paused and turned to face the princess, her eyes filled with wisdom and sadness. Forgive me, your highness, I did not mean to offend. But Princess Ugoma was not appeased. With a sneer, she began to hurl insults at the old woman, her words cutting like knives through the air. How dare you speak to me in such a manner? She spat, her voice dripping with disdain. You are nothing but a lowly peasant, unworthy of even looking upon my face. Turning to her maids, Princess Ugoma issued a command. Push this woman aside and teach her some respect. But to her surprise, the maids stood frozen in place, their expressions troubled. We cannot obey such a command, your highness, one of them replied hesitantly. Enraged by their defiance, Princess Ugoma took matters into her own hands. Shoving the old woman roughly aside, with a cry of pain, the old woman stumbled and fell to the ground, tears welling up in her eyes. As Princess Ugoma and her maids walked away, the old woman's voice rang out behind them, filled with sorrow and anger. May the curse of the unjust fall upon you, Princess Ugoma, she cried, her words echoing through the village square. Princess Ugoma scoffed at the old woman's words, dismissing them as the rambling of a mad woman. As days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Princess Ugoma's life continued as before, filled with luxury and privilege, but devoid of kindness and humility. As the sun rose over the village of Ebenabo, the town crier's voice rang out through the streets, calling the villagers to gather for the annual New Yam festival. It was a happy time, a time for celebrating the good harvest they had received. In the palace, the king and queen of Ebenabo got ready for the festival, excited to join their people in the celebration. But they were also worried about their daughter, Princess Ugoma, who had been acting strangely lately. Where is Princess Ugoma? The queen asked, her face showing her concern. She must not miss the New Yam festival. It's a time for everyone to come together and be happy. The maids hurried to Princess Ugoma's room, eager to wake her up and get her ready for the festival. But as they entered the room, they were met with a sight that filled them with fear. Princess Ugoma lay on her bed, her once beautiful face twisted and ugly. Her skin was pale and wrinkled, her features changed beyond recognition. It was as if she had turned into a creature from a nightmare overnight. With a cry of horror, the maids ran from the room. their hearts pounding with fear. They rushed to tell the king and the queen what they had seen, their voices shaking with terror. The king and queen hurried to their daughter's room, their mind filled with shock and disbelief. But as they entered the room and saw her, they were speechless. They couldn't believe what had happened to Princess Ugoma. "My child," the queen whispered, her voice full of sadness, "what has happened to you?" Princess Ugoma lay on her bed, her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know," she cried. "Someone has cursed me, but who could have done this?" The king and queen exchanged worried looks, their hearts heavy with sorrow for their daughter. They knew that Princess Ugoma's bad behavior had likely made someone angry, but they never thought it would lead to such a terrible cause. As the villagers gathered in town square to start the festival, the king and queen stayed by their daughter's side, worried about what had happened. On this day of celebration, their hearts were heavy with worry for Princess Ugoma and the kingdom of Ebenabo. News of Princess Ugoma's change spread quickly through the village. The villagers, who had once admired the princess's beauty, now felt sorry for her. They wondered what could be done to break the curse and help their princess. The palace of Ebenabo was filled with sadness and worry. The king and queen did not know what to do about their beloved daughter, Princess Ugoma. No one in the village, not even the wisest men and soothsayers, could find out why she was suffering. The royal family felt helpless and very sad. One morning, as the sun rose over the village, the king called the village chief priest to the palace. He hoped the priest could help them find answers. The chief priest arrived quickly. His face showed concern as he listened to the king's story. "Your Majesty," began the chief priest, "I have talked to the spirits and performed many rituals, but I cannot find the cause of Princess Ugoma's suffering. It is as if she is under a powerful curse, and that is hard to explain." The king's heart sank when he heard the chief priest's words. He worried more and more about his daughter. Princess Ugoma's condition had only gotten worse. It hurt him to see her in such pain. Inside her room, Princess Ugoma lay on her bed. Her once beautiful face was now covered in tears and sorrow. She had become a shadow of her former self, filled with guilt and regret for the pain she had caused others. Day and night, she cried bitterly. The only thing that comforted her was her mother's presence by her side. Despite all that had happened, the queen stayed with her daughter, never leaving her alone. Outside the palace, the villagers whispered among themselves. They felt sorry for Princess Ugoma, but also remembered her past arrogance and cruelty. No one dared to approach the palace, fearing the curse that had struck the princess. As days went by, the king's health began to fail. His worry for his daughter was too much for him. Even though he tried to stay strong for the kingdom, his despair made him weak. But even in the darkness that covered the palace, there was a small light of hope. In her deep sadness, Princess Ugoma began to understand how wrong she had been. She felt true remorse in her heart. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her mother, her voice full of emotion. "I'm sorry for everything." The queen hugged her daughter tightly, her own tears mixing with Ugoma's. "We will find a way to break this curse, my dear," she promised. "We will not rest until you are free from this suffering." As days passed and Princess Ugoma's affliction remained a mystery, a glimmer of hope emerged when one of the palace maids approached the queen with a startling revelation. Trembling with fear, the maid recounted the encounter with the old woman and the curse she had laid upon the princess. The queen's heart sank as she listened to the maid's tale, realizing that this could be the key to unlocking the mystery of her daughter's suffering. Summoning Princess Ugoma to her chambers, the queen gently urged her daughter to recount the events of that fateful day. with tears streaming down her face. Princess Ugoma recounted the encounter with the old woman and the curse she had unwittingly incurred. As she spoke, the weight of her guilt and remorse hung heavy in the air, and the queen's heart ached for her daughter's suffering. Determined to right the wrongs of the past, the king ordered the palace guards to search for the old woman and bring her to the palace. For days, the guards scoured the village in search of the elusive woman, their efforts fueled by the hope of finding a solution to Princess Ugoma's affliction. Finally, on the brink of despair, the guards stumbled upon the old woman in a remote corner of the village. With trembling hands, they delivered the king's message, pleading with her to come to the palace and lift the curse she had laid upon the princess. But the old woman remained steadfast, refusing to heed their pleas until the king himself came to seek her out. With a heavy heart, the king, accompanied by the queen and Princess Ugoma, made their way to the old woman's humble abode. As they stood before her, Princess Ugoma fell to her knees, her voice trembling as she begged for forgiveness. The old woman regarded her with a mixture of pity and compassion, her heart softened by the sincerity of the princess's plea. "I forgive you, my child," she said softly, her voice filled with wisdom. "But remember, true beauty lies not in outward appearances, but in the kindness and humility of the heart." With those words, the old woman lifted the curse she had placed upon Princess Ugoma, and in an instant, the princess's beauty was restored. Gasps of amazement echoed through the crowd as they beheld the transformation, and tears of joy streamed down the king and queen's faces. Summoning the villagers, the king declared a feast in honor of his daughter's redemption. Princess Ugoma stood before the gathered crowd, her heart overflowing with gratitude as she apologized to Chinedu, Ifeoma, Emeka, and all those she had wronged in the past. As laughter and music filled the air, the kingdom of Ebenabo rejoiced in the triumph of love, forgiveness, and redemption. And though challenges may lie ahead, the bonds of family and community will forever guide them on the path to a brighter future. Princess Ugoma's heart swelled with happiness as she danced and celebrated with the villagers. She had learned a valuable lesson and was determined to be a kind and humble princess from then on. The old woman watched from a distance, a gentle smile on her face. She knew that Princess Ugoma had truly changed and that her heart was now filled with goodness. As the sun set and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, the people of Ebenabo gathered around a large bonfire. They sang songs, shared stories, and enjoyed the feast prepared in celebration of Princess Ugoma's transformation. The king and queen looked at their daughter with pride and love. They knew that she would be a wise and caring leader for their people. And so, with heart full of hope and joy, the people of Ebenabo celebrated the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new era of peace and harmony. Princess Ugoma had been redeemed, and the kingdom was united in their love and support for her. From that day forward, Princess Ugoma ruled with kindness and humility. She listened to the needs of her people and worked to make the kingdom a better place for everyone. The villagers admired her for her strength and courage in admitting her mistakes and changing for the better. As the years passed, the story of Princess Ugoma's transformation became a legend in Ebenabo. It was told to children as a lesson in the importance of kindness, humility, and the power of forgiveness. And so, the kingdom of Ebenabo thrived, guided by the wisdom and compassion of Princess Ugoma and the love and support of its people. The bonds of family and community grew stronger, and peace and harmony reigned throughout the land. The most important lesson in this story is that pride and arrogance can cause great pain. It is crucial to always treat others with kindness and respect, especially our elders. Our actions can affect ourselves, and those around us. By being humble and compassionate, we can overcome problems and find forgiveness. True beauty comes from being good inside and treating others with love and kindness, no matter their status or appearance. By seeking forgiveness, we can fix broken relationships and create a better and more peaceful community. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with wonder, joy, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.